Hello, welcome to another edition of the Mr. Lewis Mini Lecture. I am Chad Lewis, pastor, teacher, and author, and today's topic is the virgin birth. The idea that Jesus was conceived in the womb of a virgin without the assistance of a human father is very old. We find it in the Gospels of Matthew and Luke, and in the oldest creeds of the church, precursors to which go all the way back to the 2nd century. So for the better part of 2,000 years, it's been a standard of Christian orthodoxy. Since the Enlightenment of the 17th and the 18th century, Western man has become suspicious of the miraculous, and while it cannot disprove miracles as logically impossible, it can still question whether they are reasonable to believe. So for critical thinkers, the virgin birth of Jesus has come under fresh review, while among believers, it's suspicious to even raise the question. So what are the arguments against the virgin birth? Well, one of them is that we have a lot of myths from the ancient world about a divine child born of a god and a human woman. Maybe this is just another example of that ancient mythology. Also, Matthew and Luke's accounts are very late, almost a half century after the death of Jesus. They occur in the infancy narrative of both Gospels, the first two chapters, which are among the more dubious parts of both Gospels, historically speaking. They contain a lot of high literary art, elements that sound folklorish, and they often conflict with one another. The other Gospel writers and the other writers of the New Testament don't seem aware of the virgin birth. We don't find it in Paul. We don't find it in John's Gospel. We don't find it in Mark. We don't find it in the other letters of the New Testament. And finally, most scholars and much of the New Testament suggests that Jesus, his parents, and disciples only gradually became aware of his identity as the Son of God, something that would not have been the case, presumably, if he had known he was born of a virgin all along. So what are the arguments on the other side? As far as myth goes, the analogy is not as strong as at first it seems. Unlike Greco-Roman society, Jesus is not said to be born of the sexual union of a divine father and a human mother, but created, as it were, in the womb of Mary in a way that sounds more like Genesis chapter 1. It is true that Matthew and Luke have late accounts, but rumor that Jesus was born in an unusual way finds its way into the Gospel of Mark, where he is called the son of Mary, and in John, where he's virtually accused of being illegitimate. The fact that Matthew and Luke frequently disagree with one another also suggests that their account of the virgin birth comes from different sources and is not the brainchild of a single creative evangelist. The fact that the other writers of the New Testament do not specifically mention it does not necessarily mean that they were ignorant of it. Finally, even though it is probably true that Jesus only gradually became aware of himself as the Son of God, this is entirely compatible, especially in the first century, with him having believed that he was divine in some sense, and with him and even Mary having known that he was virginally conceived. So where does all of this leave us? Well, the scientifically controllable evidence leaves us at an impasse that cannot be resolved apart from a commitment to a specific worldview. For Christians who believe in the reliability of the Bible and of the church and experience Christ's presence and power in their life, the virgin birth will continue to remain a part of the matrix of their faith in the one who is both God and man. But for believers and non-believers alike, it is important to understand the complexity of this doctrine and the problems that have been discussed attending it. Thank you. Remember, you can listen to my sermons for free online at newtempleec.com. For all you readers out there, buy my book, Norman's Descent, on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Till then, my fellow travelers, Pax Tibi, and God bless.